Well, I've been here all my life. I was born in 42 on the same street. This is the third house on Grassy Hill that I lived in. It was fun growing up in town because you could take a bicycle anywhere. There wasn't that much traffic. You could ride anywhere. You could visit people. If you broke down or needed a ride, people would stop and give you a ride. You didn't even have to hitchhike. And after that, we moved up to here where we are now in 51. And basically, I got interested. I worked at 51. I had to start doing something. I got to be 10, 11 years old, and I got interested in Heinz Farm down there. So what I used to do is go down there for the summertime. Go down there and do hay all summer. Then after the hay was done, you help pick corn. With hay, they started me driving a tractor, and I was about 12 or 13. I could drive a tractor. You'd ted the hay, and it was all horse-drawn equipment. It was converted to a tractor. It was all slow turning. You couldn't go fast because the tedder had like a crankshaft on it that would spin and turn. And if you went too fast, the hay would end up on top of it and get wound up. Then you have a lot of work to cut it all off. And I kept doing that until I finished school. Then my father said, "You're going to go on to school or go into service." I didn't know what I wanted to do. So at 18, I went in the Army for 3 years. Went to Okinawa, Thailand, and my last time was down in Georgia. I made the Cuban crisis down there. We're all locked up for a month. And I got out and I started working for myself. Wanted to do something. So somebody said, "Can you put a septic system in?" I said, "Yeah, I can try that." So I did it. I put it in. And I had 2 jobs lined up, and I was never that low. I always had more to do. So I did that. And you're running out of work doing that. Then it was wintertime got slow, so what do you do in the winters? I used to plow snow. I plowed for the town, I plowed for the state. I plowed for over 30 years for both town and state. And it got slow, some years were slow doing that, so then I started hauling oil for a local company, bought a couple trucks. I thought I was going to make a fortune, but I lost a fortune. So I did that. And with the septic system, I tried that. It was tough getting people to work all the time. So the opportunity came through with septic systems. They were putting the sewers in the town. So I said, "That sounds like a good job. I want to go get that job." So they checked me out a little bit, what I knew about it. And I was a sewer inspector for 22 years with the town. You learned who you had to work with or inspect all the time. No shortcuts. And there was 4 pump stations that I kept an eye on. I had to check every day to make sure. The hardest part is when the alarm would go off in the middle of the night, you had to go check it out to see what it was. It could be anything. There was always plenty of work to do. So I did that, and they said, "Oh, you're not too busy doing that because things weren't breaking down. Everything was running smooth." So they made me a building inspector too, the town buildings. Walk through and see what they needed, and the custodians. I was in charge of those to see when they were working and not working and stuff like that. That was fun. I really enjoyed working like that. I had a lot of fun. They did it for, like I say, 22 years for the town. I worked for myself. And then I retired. I got tired and I retired. So all those years working for the town, I became number 1 in a number 2 business. What else do we want to talk about here?
Can you go back to talk about your parents and how they got started in Orange and your dad's job?
Yeah, my father was from Michigan. He came in the late 20s, early 30s. Worked up in Ansonia at a loan office up there until they went out of business. Then he went to work for W.E. Bassett. Meanwhile, in there, he met my mother. They got married in, I forget what year it is right now, 29 or so, 30. And then my sister, let's see, she was born in 39.
Where was the house when they first moved into Orange? Where was that?
On Grassy Hill, the other end of Grassy Hill.
Okay.
They rented for there, and then we bought this house in 51. Moved here, was on the market for a long time because it was a big house and nobody wanted it. I remember coming here in 51, there was big trees out in the front, it was all overgrown. So it was always work to do here. I started mowing the lawn with a little 20-inch lawnmower back then. It was a small one. A lot of grass to cut. But I enjoyed it. What else could we do?
Your dad had a town job? Did he do?
Yeah, he was town clerk and tax collector for years until he died.
For Orange, correct?
For town of Orange, yeah. And my mother was teaching. She taught up in Huntington. And then she started in Orange and finished up in here in Orange. They made her retire at 70.
That's good.
I lived a boring life after that.
But John, talk about a little bit more with the sewers coming in. That really kind of helped define Orange as far as the industrial corridor that we have. And I think it also helped Orange to kind of evolve into a more kind of a more industrialized part of town. So, I mean, without the sewers, we would really be stuck.
Yeah. Well, the sewer line goes 300 feet north of the post road in the southern half. There's 4 pump stations, and everything gravitated into the pump stations, and they pump it to West Haven. We were just a water collection. We collected the water and sent it to West Haven. And you had to do a lot of, you're always on your toes looking for things breaking down or backing up. The police had my number on speed dial, I think, to call me up when the alarms would go off at 3 o'clock in the morning. And sometimes it could be anything. Some of the biggest problems is somebody flush a pair of pantyhose down the line and stop a sewer motor. So you got to figure stuff out like that and pull it out and fix it.
That would have been a time. But it's nice to be able to have all of these businesses are hooked on. Sears, there apparently was Sears complex. Was that? Do you know if that was like the tipping factor where if they didn't get sewers in Orange, they were going to be closed down?
Right, because they were pumped every day because the ground couldn't take the water anymore.
Okay, all right.
So they put a pump in.
And that kept Sears
Yeah.
going, and then obviously gave
McDonald's was another one that was pumped almost every couple times a week. All the fast food restaurants that used a lot of water, they were pumped all the time. Because the ground can only take so much, and there's a small parcel of land, so that's why they had to take it.
Right.
Like I say, we were just water collection. We collected it all, sent it to West Haven, and they treated it there. And we have to pay so much a gallon going through. We had to read the meters, the water bill, that's what they paid for.
Right, good. So, but that really was the tipping factor when they all of a sudden, we had to, as you say, small property, and they had no place really for drainage, for...
You couldn't build any more leach lines on it because there's no place to put it. It was so confined.
Yeah, excellent. How about plowing? Plowing was a very interesting thing way back in the day.
When I first started out with a truck, because I had the trucks for the septic business, the town would pay you $15 an hour with the truck. Now it's up to about $150 because everything costs so much.
So, and then where was your route? Did you just plow in Orange, or
I just,
did you do
for the town route, I plowed, I had a regular route. It was up in this part of the top of the hill because you knew the roads. I had like a 10 miles one way, so it's 20 miles, you do it twice. And most of the time you had to do it 4 times to do the middle and move it over again.
Big job.
And 13 turnarounds, so it took a long time.
And how about the state? Did you ever work for the state?
I worked for the state for years too. I had a couple of trucks on the state. And they were easy. You go straight ahead. You didn't have turnarounds. You just follow their crew and go.
Exactly.
But I used to go from Greenwich into New York, basically, and turn around.
Wow.
So I worked out of Surf Avenue in Bridgeport with the state. You had a regular route. You follow their trucks, but you knew where you were going and everything else. Because you had to watch all the manholes in the road so you wouldn't break anything.
Ouch.
You learned where they were after the first time you hit them.
They're unforgiving. Isn't that true?
Oh, you stop fast. Well, you break it and you go home.
That's it. John, how about the Bicentennial? How was that? Did you have any involvement?
Back then, I was doing too much work where I really couldn't spend much time doing it.
All right.
In fact, the Saturday when they had the parade and everything, it was hard working to get across town where I was working to get back home because the traffic was so heavy.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, at least then you participated in watching the fair.
Yeah.
The parade. That was good.
Did a few things, but not much really back then. I was too busy working.
Yeah. Good. Any other fond memories of Orange or crazy stories that happened?
Well, in the fire department, we used to have fun. Back then, you could have fun, go to a fire and come back, clean up, and have a good time.
And how long were you a volunteer fireman?
It was broken up when I went in the service. When I first started out,
You were a teenager then.
basically, after 16, you can get in it, 16, 17.
Okay.
You were a helper. There was a lot of brush fires back then. They needed volunteers to put the fires out. The biggest fire I remember as a kid was the park apartments on Old Grassy Hill Road. That burnt up. Place was broken into and robbed, and they set the front half out where the stairs are. That was the office space, and the back half was the brick half. That was the warehouse. As a kid, I remember pulling the chimney down out of there after it burnt up.
Wow. That must have been a really good fire.
It was all set. Back then with 3 trucks, it was kind of hard to, you'd do what you could do.
Good. And you retired from that?
Yeah,
From the fire department after a while? Yeah.
I wasn't active enough for them. They wanted me to go to, I'm not going to crawl through buildings and on smoky buildings, let the young guys do it.
I agree. I think we're lucky to have a good department where we do have some nice young
Yeah.
men and women that really do enjoy, getting out there and
A girl
crawling through.
A girl took my place.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
There you
I
go.
spread it around, let everybody do the work.
That's great. You guys have any questions?
I was wondering, because you know so many of the people that we interviewed so far, and I was wondering if there were any people that you grew up with here that you have any memorable experiences with that you'd want to share, just because I think it's really interesting how tight-knit everybody was and all the connections.
It's hard to say, you just did everything together. Like Walt Vespucci years ago here, I could walk from here to his house down on Derby Milford Road and never see another house. Because it was in the 50s, Long Meadow down here was the first one to cut through. Other than that, there was no roads off to the side. It was just the main roads. And the dirt roads, Prudent Lane was one of the last ones, Treat Lane, Shepherd Lane were the last ones to pave the roads, or oil and tar, because the rest of them were all dirt roads back then.
Yeah. But it is true. Everybody did things together, I think. And
We all hung around together. We'd have hoedowns and everything where you go together as a group and have picnics and stuff like that and work together. Well, back then where American Legion is down here, 10 Bridge used to be behind it. They had a high wall they call it 10 Bridge because there's a bridge that went across the Weppawag there that had a 10 roof on it. And we used to go swimming there. You could go swimming on a hot day, pull in, disrobe, go swimming, come back out, and nobody bothered you because nobody was there. There's a few of those watering holes around where you could do stuff like that.
exactly. And that was definitely before the lake was built.
There was no lake then.
That's it. Exactly.
That lake was put in when I was in the Army back in the 60s. I went to the Army, came back, and there was a big hole there.
It was a big gravel pit before that.
It wasn't much gravel, mostly clay.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, that's great.
I think all of the connections that we have is what makes Orange so unique, and just people all helping out with, different jobs and working together to kind of help make this town what it's become today.
Everybody worked together. You needed some help, you call them up. You volunteer on a weekend to do something. Because I don't know what else for volunteering. You grew up together and did things together.
That's it. And John, you're still haying.
Very little. I've been replaced.
You think of that, you've come full circle, and now you're actually out there helping your grandson
Yeah.
with his haying project. Oh, and that's what makes it fun, doesn't it?
Well, it's a better tractor. You can sit on it and just go.
Exactly.
Back then, you'd do 1,000 bales. You think you did a lot of work. You did a lot of work back then.
Is there any other memorable experience of living in this town that you could think of?
No, it's just the camaraderie with everybody that you all worked together and did things together. That's the main thing. I never thought of it as an experience. You just did it.
Yeah.
It was second nature, helping somebody else out. Or
a lot of people that we've been talking to, they've had a lot of different jobs, a lot of different positions in the town, and I think that's something that you see maybe less of today. You see less people. You see people focused more on one thing, but it sounds like a lot of people had different duties.
yeah, you were. Well, you'd help, like you're a fireman one day, you're working for the town, you're fixing this or helping that, or somebody broke down, you're helping them do that, and you just went from one to the next. You didn't even ask, you just did it. I was in Rotary for 20 years, and right now they can't get new members because everybody's so busy they don't want to do it anymore. Back then, everybody worked together.
And everyone got to try out different things. It sounds like you had an opportunity to try a lot of different things out in your career, and Orange kind of seems like it's offered some varieties. We have,
Like opportunities.
Yeah.
For us.
Different opportunities.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, opportunities would knock and you answered. You just went to work
that's it.
and try something different. It made the day go by faster too. And you learn something, make new friends. That's what it was about, basically.
Any job in particular that you were involved in was one of your favorites, or something that stuck with you? And
Well, I was always digging holes with backhoes and bulldozers. And when I went to work for the town, because I wasn't a licensed installer to do this, the military housing had 30 houses down there. The town was going to send it out to put all the sewers in there and manholes and everything else to tie those 30 houses in. It's all in one area. They were going to send it out to bid. I said, why can't I do it with highway? You got the help, you got the equipment, we can just do it. So I just did it. When we got all done, tying it in and everything else, some of the guys work for the town says, what's our next job? What can we do again to work together? Because the day went by faster when they worked like that. There was like 3 guys who go to work with me every day, and we'd tie a few more houses in, put manholes in. They all worked together.
so were there people you worked with a lot that still live in Orange, or that you still keep in touch with?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, that's good.
a whole group of people that like we go together and used to square dance together, and we had fun and have parties and stuff like that. We do things as a group.
Exactly.
And brought the kids up the same way. My kids are going with the kids that I went with before. Everybody plays and works with everybody else the same way.
Yeah, and I think it's true. Even looking at those next generations, their tractor breaks down or whatnot, they automatically know who to call, who to check with, and if they don't have it, they're going to send them on
Yeah.
to the next person.
Yeah,
But there is,
they work
that's
together.
Yeah, work together, and there's help and support.
My hay wagon broke down. Can I use yours? Sure, take it.
Right, exactly. No, it is. It's so true. It's a beautiful thing.
It's pretty amazing talking to everyone and learning how many people know each other. It's just amazing. So,
It's all walks of life. They're all different people, from doctors to people, just average people.
Exactly. Good job. John, that was great.
thank you so much.
That was great.
Thank you for all of that.
Ooh.
Okay, so that was a good practice. Now we're
Oh, God.
Oh crap, we weren't recording.
I hope you got it on there.